Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Kathryn Murray from Future Strong Education in Australia. And today I'm going to share with you a little bit of information about how we can set up our learning environments to promote well-being and to promote calm. My mantra is a calm brain is a thinking brain. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about the brain, but also what that means for our well-being and how we can set up a classroom that's conducive to well-being and learning. So let's start with the brain. We all have one, right? Now we know that the brain is very complicated and very complex, and it's got lots of regions and lots of areas, and it's got hemispheres and all of those things that we've heard about before. But let's just simplify it a little bit. Let's just say that the brain has 3 levels. The survival part of the brain here in the brainstem at the back is really around keeping this whole organism, our whole selves, safe. The emotional part of the brain, the amygdala in the limbic system, is all about the emotions that we feel and our feelings. So whether we have that sense of safety and we feel safe are 2 different things. If we have those 2 parts of the brain aligned, that means they're in agreement, then this neocortex part of the brain is calm and can learn easily. And that adds to well-being because it reduces stress. It reduces the cortisol level that we have in our brain. That's a chemical or a hormone that's produced when we're under stress or we feel threatened. That's part of what happens when we go into the fight, flight, or freeze mode. So if we feel threatened, we're feeling threatened, this part of the brain says, oh, we better do something about that. We better either run away, or we better fight, or better poke, or we better say something mean to save ourselves, or we just better close down. But if everything is calm in the environment, meaning that the way you have positioned things in your room and the engaging materials that you have for children in your room, if all of that is in sync, well, then this part of the brain calms down and thinking happens easily. So what does that mean and what does that look like? Well, well-being-based learning is a derivative of the brain set environments formula, which is a process that I have developed that allows teachers to set up their classrooms in a way that aligns with the needs of the developing brain of the child. And what's that really mean then? Well, it means that there is a way to do this, and I'm going to show you that in just a moment, but we also need to be thinking about what are the children interested in? How can we develop their interests? How can we make sure that we curate our room and our spaces with things that children are interested in so that that draws them in? Maybe the children could be asking questions. I was in my classroom one year, we were talking about what are we going to learn, and one of the children said, what are hippies? And we went through this whole, I think it ended up being like 5 or 6 weeks where we were investigating what hippies were, what hippies do, what clothes hippies wear, what they eat, and what does it mean to be a hippie. Some of the parents that year had been hippies. So they were perfect examples of what the hippie lifestyle was all about. But that stemmed from the children's interests. And so we made, investigations and inquiry-based learning around the idea of hippies. The questioning was really important. Lots of open-ended questions and lots of ongoing interactions that were, of course, developmentally appropriate. Because as I started Googling hippies, there was a lot of conversation on Google about free love and lots of dancing around and expressing yourself in whatever way you wanted to do. So we had to vet some of that information, but to make it developmentally appropriate. And then, of course, the learning activities and the learning experiences that we created had to be developmentally appropriate for the children. When we have all of that going on, we promote curiosity, creativity, calm learning, and it's a solutions-based approach because children are interested. So they find solutions. They collaborate with each other. They cooperate with each other. Behavior issues decrease. Oral language and interaction increases. Children are less threatened and are more engaged in their classroom learning. all because we've based it on the interest. And you know yourself, when you're doing something that's interesting, you feel calm, you're really in it, and they call it being in the flow. And there's a whole lot of research around being in the flow. So it's important to get ourselves in the flow to add to our well-being. And we can do that by setting up our learning environment in a particular way, as well as making sure that we are focusing on children's interests. And it just goes around and around in a cycle. So we have this curiosity happening, and we have the calm, and we have the solutions, and then we go back to different interests, and it changes over time as the children are ready to move on to something else. But our environment is really important, and this is part of my brain set environments formula approach. And you can see that there's 3 main pillars there. There's a design for learning, a feelings for learning section, and then spaces for learning. And within all of those, 16 design elements. Underpinning all of that is critical thinking and learning. So critical thinking is all around looking at the information that you have, deciding how you're going to use it, asking lots of questions, communicating questions, finding the solutions, and working things through. You're critically thinking about what you're learning. And that's an important skill for young children to learn, because in the future, when they are on the job market, they're some of the skills that they need to have: creativity, critical thinking, ability to analyze data, communicate well. All of those things are really important. So I'm going to show you some photos in a moment, and I'm going to show you some of these design elements. Of course, we don't have time in this short little presentation to go through all of them and for me to really deep dive into it. But I do want to give you an idea of different ways to set up classroom environments that promote well-being and promote calm. One of the people that I was training in my brain set course was telling me that after the first session that we did together, she went into her classroom and just changed a few things around, and she wasn't really expecting just those couple of changes to make much of a difference. But when she came back to the next session of the training, she had this big smile on her face and said she could not believe it. She could not believe how engaged the children were just because she changed a few things around that aligned with their developing brain. She said that she and the staff that were with her were much calmer, and they actually had time to talk to each other and talk about the children and facilitate the learning at a much deeper level because everything was calm. So they finished the day not being stressed and overwhelmed. Well, obviously that's so much better for their well-being. So we can set up things like this, and you'll notice that even though you might say, well, we don't have these same resources, or we don't have the space, or whatever your context might be, that is true. That is true for everyone who walks on this journey with me and looks at these different spaces. We all have a different context. So what I want to show you here is just some examples of elements that you could add to your learning spaces. So you can see that this is based on an interest. The children have been outside and they've been talking about bugs, and the teacher has set this space up. She hasn't said, okay, we're all going to go inside now and draw a picture of the bug, or okay, let's get these black line masters out and we're all going to colour in a picture of an ant. She hasn't said that. She's left it very open-ended, but it's inviting for the children. You see that it's a space there for one. There's the clipboard with one piece of paper and a pencil, and there's probably more paper to the side. She's got books there about bugs. She's got some pictures of bugs, magnifying glasses, so there can be some classification going on there, some counting, some observing, some writing, some early literacy skills, some mark making, a range of different things in this small little defined space that's just ready for one child. And that's less threatening for the child just to be there by themselves. It's calming. It's set up beautifully. And this is a training opportunity for the teacher with the children too, to help them to learn to respect their spaces and to leave things ready for the next person. So this is a similar sort of idea. Again, it's talking about the outdoors and flowers. And the teacher has some dried flowers there. You can see too, she's used the natural materials again, and she's also added a nice soft lamp rather than have the bright overhead lights on. It softens the space a little bit. Again, calms the brain, better for well-being. Now, a well-being space just for one can be as easy as this. This was made by one of the teacher's husbands. And this is just a chair with some little fairy lights around it and a mosquito net. And I encourage teachers to use these spaces too, to model well-being and model self-care to the children. Using nature is really a really beautiful way to incorporate calm and well-being into your room. In this image, so many skills can be developed here. There can be patterns, counting, classification. There's the sensory feel of it all, the smelling of the flowers, the natural experience, the mirror that it's all on, the sizing of the rocks. There's a whole range of numeracy and literacy skills that can occur in this one space. And again, having these natural materials, lowering that level of the ceiling behind that little baby, having those soft lights, having the soft furnishings behind, all helps make the environment familiar and calm. Using the outside, this on the left-hand side here is in the sandpit. And the teacher may have done that as an inspiration for the children, but it's definitely not an example that she has said, okay, now we're all going to do this. Everybody has to make the same as me. She may have put those materials there and allowed them to use the sand tray or the sand pit, whatever that is in, as a way of calming and engaging with nature. On the right-hand side, something as simple as having magnifying glasses outside and having something to write on to encourage that literacy and recording the learning is very calming. You know yourself, it's a very different feel when you go from inside to outside. So spaces for well-being and calm can look like this in your room too. It can just be a nice soft space to read books. You can see the lamp, you can see there's some plants there, so it's some nice soft cushions. On the right-hand side, it's a table set up just for 2 children. They can go there and interact with those materials in a calm way. Again, nature has been placed in those spaces. This is from a grade 1 classroom in Australia. You can see that different levels have been used and the nice timber look. Now, if you don't have a timber look, that's okay. You can put a tablecloth or some table mats on the bright coloured tables if that's what you have in your room. But we're wanting to use calm, natural colours and materials if we can, because that adds to our well-being. But it also comes down to planning. How we plan our environment is really important, and the types of materials we put into the spaces is really important. Linking it to the children's interests is pivotal, but it comes down to these 7 steps really. And the first one is child appreciation, where we're actually appreciating the child. We know who they are, not just observe them, but we actually know them. We look at where they are developmentally. We look at what we need to do to support the brain development. We check out their interests and then design the environment accordingly. We do some reflection around that. Then we make some changes and we start all over again. It's a bit of a cycle. And this is the BrainSet planning cycle, or the planning process that we talk about in our training sessions or the BrainSet courses that I offer. So adding to your well-being is so important. Having a calm classroom will help with that. A calm brain is a thinking brain. Remember that one. And I'm going to leave you with that thought to look at your environment and think of all of the different ways that you can calm it down to add to your well-being and to the well-being of the children and all the parents that come into the room as well. I'm Dr. Kathryn Murray from Future Strong Education, and here are my contact details if you'd like to get in touch with me and learn more about BrainSet or well-being, or whether you are thinking of having your staff trained in the BrainSet environments formula. Just contact me and let me know. Okay, bye for now. Enjoy your day.